This is Keith Helwig from Cops Corrections Videos. Today, I'd like to talk to new officers and give some advice to new officers. Now, I'm not the be-all, end-all expert on corrections or law enforcement. I'm just an old guy who's been in it for a long time, and I'd like to just offer a few bits of advice to new officers to maybe help your job and your life be a little bit easier. The name of my video, or the name of my YouTube channel is Cops Corrections. If you like my videos, please hit the red subscribe button. From the first day you put on your uniform and badge, you're going to be tested. Whether it's by an inmate behind the walls or a citizen on the streets, you will be tested. Believe me, it happened to me. It still happens to me when I work as a street cop. People test me. I've been there, so I'd like to give some tips to new officers. Some are exclusive to corrections, and others are applicable whether you're a cop on the street or walking a beat in a cell hall. One of the first bits of advice I would like to give everybody who's a correctional officer is inmates are not your friends. You aren't working in a prison to make friends, and inmates aren't in prison to be friends. Now, undoubtedly, there's going to be inmates that you like. There's going to be inmates that you get along with better than others. That's understandable. But remember, they are not your friend. The majority of inmates just want to do their time and get out of prison. However, there is a percentage that's going to exploit you, use you, manipulate you, and set you up. They're going to start with small favors, and those small favors are going to turn into bigger favors. As a street cop, remember, you're on camera. Whether it's your camera, whether it's somebody's cell phone, regardless, you're on camera. Be careful. As a correctional officer, don't give inmates personal information. Now, it's difficult when you're an officer working a unit and you're by yourself and you're surrounded by 60 or 70 inmates, and those are the people you have contact with all day, not to be friendly with them, and sometimes people fall into the trap of sharing personal information with them. This all goes back to number one. Inmates are not your friend. They don't need to know about your wife. They don't need to know that your daughter plays volleyball or your son plays football. They don't need to know that. They are not your friends. Conversely, don't trust an inmate with any personal information. It's difficult when, as an officer, you have more contact with inmates than you do staff. It's difficult not to want to talk about what's going on in your life. But there again, inmates are not your friend. Regardless of what you learn in the academy, one of the first things you need to learn is that your favorite word as a new officer should be no. If an inmate approaches you and they want you to do something, or they ask you to get them something, and you're not sure whether they should have it, or you're not sure whether it's something you can give them, say no. Tell them that you're going to check into it, and after you check into it, if you're wrong, admit that you're wrong. It's a lot easier to change a no into a yes than it is to change a yes into a no. Once you've told them they can have something, it's hard to take that back. And again, if you tell someone you're going to do something, do it. If you tell an inmate you're going to check up on a policy or a rule, do it. If, as a street cop, you tell somebody that you're going to check up on their welfare later on, do it. Be a person of your word. By doing so, you're going to earn respect. Even if you have to change that no into a yes, the inmates are going to respect you for having the ability and the flexibility to realize that you're not perfect and to admit that you could have made a mistake. Now, speaking of respect, if you want respect, you need to give respect. You don't have to respect what an inmate's in prison for. You don't have to respect them as a person. You don't have to respect the life that they've led. But show them the respect that you would want shown to you. Again, if you want respect, you need to give respect. At the end of the day, though, remember, the only person you really need to respect is the person staring back at you in the mirror. If you can look at that person and know that you've done a good job, that you've done the right thing, then you've earned your respect. I always tell new officers, never do anything that you'd be afraid to tell your mom. Now, I know some of us, their mothers are dead or whatever. I'm using mom as kind of a generic phrase. If you're doing something which you're ashamed of, which you feel would cause embarrassment, which you know is illegal, immoral, don't do it. Don't do it. Be able to look at yourself in the mirror, be able to respect yourself. If you're not sure of something, ask for help. None of us come onto this job knowing all the answers. Find a mentor. Find someone you know you can trust and go to them. Each institution or sheriff's department or police department or whatever has that go-to guy on each shift. That's the person that everybody knows they can go to and get a decent answer. For me, as a captain in my institution, I knew there are officers I could go to that were going to help me out and going to give me good advice if I needed it. As a captain, I didn't know everything, and I had to admit that as well. I had go-to guys. I had control center officers. I had patrol officers that I could go to, and I knew I could get advice. Find a mentor. Don't copy that mentor, though. Take the good, take the bad. Be your own officer, develop your own style, find what works for best for you. Now, undoubtedly, somewhere along the line, you're going to encounter bad officers. One bit of advice I can give is you can learn as much from a bad officer as you can a good officer. They're going to show you what not to do, and you need to remember what not to do and use the example of them as what not to do. Now, there's a lot of stress in law enforcement. Whether you're on the streets or behind the bars, there's a lot of stress. Unless you want to deal with that stress, unless you want to teach you alive, talk about it. Find someone that you trust, that you can tell what's going on. Whether it's a spouse, a significant other, your mother, your father, a coworker, talk to them. Let them know what's going on in your life. Now, if it's your spouse, you don't have to come home and tell them the gruesome details of a child that you found dead on patrol. You don't need to tell them the gruesome details of someone who slashed their throat and jumped off a tier. You don't need to tell them that, but just going home and telling them, you know, I had a really rough day. Somebody killed themselves, or I had to deal with somebody's death. Just tell somebody about it. Talk about it. You know, PTSD is something that affects everybody in law enforcement, whether they want to admit it or not. Now, a statistic that very few people know and very few people deal with is that PTSD is actually higher in law enforcement and correction personnel than it is in active military personnel. Now, this isn't said to demean or belittle the effect of PTS on those that protect our freedoms. Rather, it's to point out a fact. As a member of the military, a person is subjected to many horrific events during a specific period of time. In law enforcement, whether it's on the street or behind the bars, you're also subjected to a series of horrific events. However, it's not for a specific time. It's during the course of your career, whether that career is 20 years or 30 years, you're subjected to those horrific events on a quite regular basis. Once again, if you need help, ask for help. Go to somebody. There's no shame in talking to a counselor. There's no shame in talking to an employee assistance program. If you need help, get help. Get a hobby. Find something that you like to do outside of work. For me, it's writing. I've written a couple books. I enjoy writing. I enjoy going out with my friends and target shooting. I enjoy going kayaking with my wife. Just find something. Remember, your job isn't your life. It pays for your life. Law enforcement can be a great career and a great life. But like everything else, it's what you make it. If you choose to go into work every day and to feed into the negativity and to take a bite out of that turd sandwich every day because everybody around you is miserable, that's your choice. That's your option. If you choose to go in and be thankful for what you have, to be thankful for your career and do a good job, you're going to have a good career. And finally, throughout the course of your career, remember the most important thing above all is going home at the end of your shift in one piece. Until next time, this is Keith Helwig from Cops Corrections. Stay safe and watch your back.